Today we'll be talking about Half-Life Blue Shift, the underappreciated underdog of the Half-Life franchise. See, before we had Half-Life Alyx, before we had Portal and Portal 2, before we had Half-Life 2 in the episodes, we had the so-called Gold Source trilogy. Half-Life and its two little babies, Opposing Force, and our central topic today, Blue Shift. And, Half-Life Deathmatch and Deathmatch Classic and Team Fortress, Ricochet if you're so inclined, the Gunman Chronicles even, and, also Half-Life Decay, and, that one was actually pretty important to the overall topic, so it really especially should probably be included, so calling it a trilogy is a little bit of a lie. But anyway, Half-Life is of course the story of Gordon Freeman. Everyone already knows him, he's the main protagonist, who cares? Opposing Force, on the other hand, is the story of Adrian Shepard, one of the Marines who showed up after the Residence Cascade to do what, secret government task force do best. Kill U.S. civilians. And, the occasional alien, too, and Half-Life Decay is a co-op game about two women. And, that's all you're getting from me because Valve has not made this easy to play. They just won't port it. I don't know why. But besides Gordon, we never saw any of these schmucks ever again. I mean, we almost did, but we're not allowed to have nice things, no. So, we just didn't. Fine, whatever, I'm fine. But actually, we did see one more protag from Half-Life. Oh yeah, we saw the protag of Half-Life Blue Shift. One Mr. Barney Calhoun, Gordon Freeman's probably best friend. Some people don't seem to be able to wrap their head around this little bite-sized adventure. Terms like worse than Opposing Force and doesn't even have a final boss are thrown around. A little rude if you ask me. See, the game's story is pretty simple. You come into work as a security guard at the Black Mesa Research Facility. You clock in and go get your standard issue firearm, because you don't need all of those shotguns and rocket launchers and revolvers. Yet, at least. But before you can get down to your 9 to 5, the world starts ending. So you gotta go find Dr. Rosenberg or whoever, who's hiding in a box because he too fears working more than 80 hours a week. Oh yeah, and because the federal government is trying to kill him.
Dr. Rosenberg, although I'm not very proud to admit it, seeing as though I'm partially responsible for all of this. How did you know my name? Oh, I see. Poor Harold. Yes, our plan was to get to one of the old prototype labs. It involved something that very few people in the facility are authorized to know about. The same technology that brought about this catastrophe could also be our only way out. You see, I was involved in the very early work on...
Pretty relatable to the target audience, but no time, you see, because the community college graduate who works as a private security guard must fight his way past highly trained soldiers and alien horrors from another dimension. See, to get to an old part of the facility with some defenseless scientists to boot up an old teleporter and get out of Dodge. So yada yada yada, you take a small field trip to Zen and boom, you're out of here. And as the game fades to black, you're reminded that you were just nearly abducted by some sort of cosmic horror businessman and almost forced to, be in a business that is vaguely doing whatever he says. But even after all that, just the absolute legend, the unstoppable force, Barney Calhoun, didn't even need to fight a final boss. He just left. Because he's just that good. But apparently that odyssey, that legend, just isn't good enough for people. See, a little known, or maybe just little spoken about fact is, the reason why Half-Life Blue Shift is actually like 3 hours long and can be whittled down to like an hour, I heard, if you're just real good, is because it was made to be paired with the Dreamcast port of Half-Life 1. But just a few weeks before Half-Life Blue Shift and Half-Life 1 were to join Sonic and Friends, the ports were canceled because the Dreamcast was kind of canceled. It actually still exists though. If you can get your hands on some unreleased copies, you can play them on your Dreamcast, because, like I said, it was meant to come out just weeks before it was canceled. So Valve's plan didn't work out, the plan being each version of Half-Life get its own little spin-off. Opposing Force for the Dreamcast Half-Life, Decay, which actually came out for the PS2 Half-Life, and Opposing Force for the PC Half-Life. But we just ended up with Decay stuck in the PS2 weed hole forever, and Blue Shift and Opposing Force easily playable to this day. So it's just led a lot of people to compare the two, you know, saying, oh, well, Blue Shift's bad, you know, especially in comparison to Opposing Force. But, I mean, come on. Especially in this context, I feel people judge it way too harshly. It was just meant to be a nice little side adventure about Barney escaping from Black Mesa on the Dreamcast. I mean, yeah, you know, it didn't have a final boss. He didn't get his own signature melee weapon, but, like, come on. It's Blue. It's cool. Alright, now let's move on to the oddities of Blue Shift. First off, let me address the non-canon take that you might see a lot. A lot of people, a lot of weirdos, seem to think that not only this, but also Opposing Force and Decay are simply non-canon. You might say, but Blue Shift basically created the character of Barney, later to be a main player in Half-Life 2. And to most Half-Life fans, you'd be right. Hell, if you ask the Half-Life wiki, they don't even do a double take. They don't even mention it's a possibility, it's wrong. He's just Barney Calhoun. But according to some odd fellows who don't think this game is real, and also apparently series writer Mark Laidlaw, it's either a no or a maybe. Oh, excuse me, Mark. Excuse me! I was unaware that B. Calhoun and Barney could be different people. They only look exactly alike and were both security guards at Black Mesa. How could I have missed that Barney didn't go on a 5-minute speech about how he escaped via car and therefore isn't the same guy? But let me stop you right there. Blue Shift is canon. Definitively. Why? Because an in-universe video game, oh yes, an in-universe arcade cabinet video game that only appeared in Half-Life Blue Shift was referenced in Half-Life Alyx. Boom, I win, Laidlaw. Go make another Twitter arc and leave me and my minimum wage sim alone. But, speaking of the car, a lot of people, myself included, thought that Dr. Kleiner from Half-Life 2 escaped with Barney, which would really tie things up in a nice bow leading to Half-Life 2. But see, you'd be wrong. Although this man may look and sound like Dr. Kleiner, he is actually Dr. Walter Bennett. I mean, makes sense. There was only a few models in Half-Life 2 for the scientists, except this man is not Walter Bennett. This is Walter Bennett. For some reason, Blue Shift changed him, despite Walter Bennett first appearing in Opposing Force, which was also made by Gearbox, like Blue Shift was. So why did that happen? But also, this scientist was turned into Dr. Kleiner. And oh no, as you can see according to this photo in Half-Life 2, although there were a few scientist models, their looks belonged to specific characters. So, Blue Shift, who is Dr. Walter Bennett? And did he escape with Barney, or was it Kleiner? Or was it this guy who is also Walter? Moving on from the Half-Life Skinwalker, but still keeping it related to skin, Half-Life Blue Shift was the game to introduce us to the HD models. See, video games back then made graphical advancements about every 2 seconds, unlike today where nothing ever changes. So only a few years after Half-Life 1 came out, the old models were looking just a bit stank. So, hey, why not make some new ones? We can put them in Blue Shift, we can put them in the, everything. That's what they thought, at least. Well, what's so weird about that, you might say? Well, it's more so the fans' reactions. For some reason, most people just seem to hate these. I'm a part of a small minority that thinks they're just like better. Like, guys, I get it, the guards looking like walking corpses is funny and all, but like, this is just better, right? I mean, they look like real people, and they make the same funny noises. Is that not enough for you people? Do you really need them to be made out of 5 polygons, you sick bastards? Speaking of better, though, the Steam version apparently isn't. Yep, sorry fellas, but this one has problems. Not anything too crazy, but you'd think the Steam version would probably be the better version. But no, for my findings, and by my findings I mean going to the Blue Shift wiki, that's actually the international big box release of Blue Shift. That's the best one. You would think it'd be like the American one, but apparently not. This is because the international one came with the online multiplayer that was specific to Opposing Force. I'm sure all 2 of the people who played that remember it very fondly. And apparently, one major glitch that used to be there, luckily I can report that it is gone, is the user face used to accidentally display itself as the base Half-Life Orange and not the far superior Half-Life Blue Shift look. Well, I mean, it's fixed, so I mean, you can't really blame them now. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I'll just hit you with the classic and leave. See, in Half-Life 1, if you go into third person, you can see Gordon in all of his ponytailed glory. And in Opposing Force, well, you can see Adrian Shepard. And in Half-Life Decay, well, you don't have to go into third person because you can just look at each other. But if you go into Half-Life Blue Shift and you type in the third person command, you see Gordon again. Oh, wait. Maybe Barney was the Half-Life Skinwalker. I mean, he looked like Gordon the whole time, and he did escape so easily. You know, Gordon had to fight a giant fetus, and Shepard had to kill a shoehorn. And nobody knows what happened in Decay. And I mean, he just disappeared. We haven't seen him in, like, over 10 years. Oh no, and he did all that police brutality. Oh no. Oh God. Maybe he is the Half-Life Skinwalker. Oh.